In regards to dreaming and herbs, I have never come across anything superior to wild lettuce. A lot of people like melatonin and a bunch of other stuff that they push everywhere, and NyQuil and everything that's disgusting to help you sleep. All these different pills, I can't fathom what they put in those. Nothing is better than wild lettuce. And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm just offering my own personal impression and reviews of what I think is one of the greatest sleep herbs of all time. And I'll go a little bit into the history. I'm going to read a little tiny bit of about synchronicity and the collective unconscious from F. David Pete, an incredible book. And I'm going to tell you a little bit and show some stuff about this wild lettuce, because it's something that I discovered about probably 15 years ago at this point. And back at this point when I first kind of was getting into it, and keep in mind I've always loved tea. Always have loved tea. My parents grew up drinking it, so I saw them when I was a kid drinking it, and I've loved it. I drink tea every day. I'm drinking it right now. And so wild lettuce at night. And I've just got back into it again, which reminded me to do a video of this. But Dali, surrealism, dreams are an incredible inspiration for art and for the world around us. There's something ancient and amazing about our dreams and their connection to reality. There's no doubting it. Are we the avatar? Are we the dream? What's dreaming us? Are we all a part of a dreaming body? There's so many different theories I could dive down to that can't be disproven about reality and the nature of it in the illusion. So this is again part of the iLLusions series and dealing with the herb of wild lettuce. So at one point back in the day, I was teaching at a high school, and I've always been nocturnal, and this was a period of several years where I couldn't be as nocturnal as I wanted to be, or if I did, I needed to maximize my sleep. And so, because I had to wake up early. And so I got into wild lettuce a big time. And at one point, I think I first discovered it in a smoke shop. They recommended you smoked it. There's resins you can smoke, and it's actually pretty nice. And it works that way too. But I always like the tea the best. The resin, I have a feeling, is really intense. They say Native Americans used to use it as a possible vision quest, just a method where that was kind of like the theme of the feeling from it. The entheogen property of this opium lettuce, wild lettuce, is that it would give them vision quests in their dreams, which I swear by you, it pretty much does. So as with most teas and herbs, when it builds up in your system, it does something different, and it takes on a whole new power. And usually it takes about months, or at least a month, for an herb to build up in your system and start working in a primo way. And so at this time of teaching, I had to maximize the sleep time because I wanted to draw as much as I could. So I would draw until about 2, 3 in the morning and then wake up at 7. And it would, when I did that without wild lettuce, I would feel exhausted and I could never fall asleep. But with wild lettuce, I could fall asleep immediately, and not only, or like when I wanted to, right when I wanted to. And that's the beauty of it. It doesn't make you drowsy, it doesn't make you tired. It just enables you to be able to click into that sleep. It's a miracle. And as it built up in my system, I remember I got to a point where my waking day was great, but it was almost nothing compared to my dreams. My dreams, I would get so excited for sleep every day for just that brief 5-hour period where I would be in another world, fully lucid, fully conscious, experiencing, now that I've heard this Vision Quest thing, experiencing what felt like Vision Quest every night. Every night I would go on an adventure. It was absolutely spectacular. I remember I was trying to find it. I have an old sound recorder somewhere, and I'll try to include at some point in another video some testimony, some of my dreams that I used to speak about, because they were phenomenal, and they would help me in my real life. I would learn things. The symbolism that I was going through in my dreams would help me that day. So it was like sometimes it was like a week. It was something about a week in advance or an overarching theme in my reality, but it was always there to help. It would guide me. So at one point, it helped me avoid an over-emotional girl, getting attached to an over-emotional girl, and the symbolism was an old sweatshirt that was relating to this. And I realized, oh my God, this is not, I gotta let this go for the sake of everyone. And that's a minor, small example of one of the lessons learned, but it was happening every day. Everything would relate to it. I'd have it got to a point where I wasn't sure which was more real, because they both felt extremely real, and the realness of the dreams and the senses getting involved in it, it was just truly lucid. And I love Carlos Castaneda. I love all those things. I don't think people need to take high intensive government and put out entheogens in order to discover the magic of the reality. And so that's what part of this is. It's a very healthy herb. Check with your doctor if you need to. Again, I'm not one, but I love herbs and I love this stuff. And this is a testimony of wild lettuce. And if you need help dreaming and sleeping, wow, I can't recommend anything more. It's so nice. It's just really great. And it's one of the cheapest herbs around too, which it really helps because you can just brew a bunch. And here's all the different things you can get from various products online. It's totally legal, totally safe. It is awesome. The taste is, it's fine as well. You get used to it. It's not very bitter like a lot of herbs, but it is magic. I promise you, you will love it. And if you do, and if you've ever used it, tell me in the comments. Share some dreams, and I will in some videos coming up too, because dreams are so important to reality and helping with it that it's just essential. And this is another one that I'm getting to know a little better, blue vervain. It really may be an ancient sacred panacea. I'm going to dive further into that before I go out with a video on it. But wild lettuce I've been using for 15 years, and it's on and off, and it's just fantastic. So I wanted to read this little excerpt on page 100 to 103 from this book, F. David Pete. It's called Synchronicity by F. David Pete. It's phenomenal. This guy's a great author. He puts a lot of stuff together. It's a book, again, from probably the time when I was doing the taking wild lettuce repeatedly for years. And I'm getting back into it now, about 3 weeks in, but it fired me up to be just so excited because it's already working. It's already giving me better sleep. And so here, I believe the collective unconscious and a lot of what he says in Jung's dream as well, which I think I've mentioned in another video about the stages and layers of humanity. I think these are all connected to the power of dreams, and by using this herb you can get there. And I think things like that will help us tap into this ancient histories, Tartaria, lost civilization kind of thing, because I think Jung did here in one of his dreams, and who knows, he may have interpreted it wrong. Here we go. This is a cool section though. Enjoy this. The collective unconscious. The patterns and energies of the collective unconscious were to occupy Jung for much of his life. The origin of this important concept can be discovered in two incidents that took place early in his career. One a dream and the other a patient's fantasy. Around 1906, Jung noticed that one of his Zurich patients, a paranoid schizophrenic, was squinting at the sun while moving his head from side to side. The patient explained to Jung that the sun possesses a penis, which is the origin of the wind, and that by turning his head from side to side he could make this penis move. The fantasy sounded quite irrational. Nevertheless, Jung made note of it, and in fact that was to be proved particularly significant several years later. Sorry about that. By 1909, Jung's star was ascending, and he traveled on a lecture tour of the United States with Freud and another analyst, Sandor Ferenczi. During their trip, the three men decided to pass the time by analyzing each other's dreams. Jung related a dream which began on the 3rd floor of his home. The rooms, however, appeared to have been built and furnished in the 18th century. The dreamer explored further and discovered that the ground floor was arranged in the manner of a 16th century house, and below was a cellar built of Roman brick. In the floor of the cellar, Jung noticed a square stone with a ring attached. In lifting the stone, he looked down into a cave filled with prehistoric pottery and ancient human skulls. I feel this dream of Jung's relates to us all now in the present moment. I really do. Something there. I'm going to read at one point the recollection by Jung. But here we go. This continues. Freud interpreted the dream in terms of personal repressions and suggested that Jung desired to destroy someone close to him, but had buried the wish deep within his dream house. Pfft. The Swiss analyst disagreed strongly with Freud's views, so do I, for the time, kept his own counsel. Later, in writing about the dream, Jung argued that it represented the history of European consciousness from its Neolithic origins through the rise of Rome, the late Renaissance to the Enlightenment of the 18th century. Just as the physical brain contains anatomical remnants of its evolutionary origins, so, the dream indicated, the mind itself contains primitive hidden memories of its remote past. That's why we need to tap into it, and wild lettuce really, really does help. These speculations received a powerful confirmation when Jung came across a Greek account of an ancient Mithraic ritual which tells of a tube let down from the face of the sun, which is the origin of the wind. Here was a striking correspondence between a 2,000-year-old myth and the fantasy of a modern Swiss patient. How could a schizophrenic's mind have come up with an image that was identical to one once believed in by the followers of Mithras? Jung began to delve further into this mythology and discovered a number of other correspondences that had surfaced over the last 2,000 years. Medieval paintings, for example, show divine rays emanating from the sun, and some legends claim that the Holy Ghost impregnated the Virgin in a similar fashion. In addition, the visitation of God is often experienced as a divine wind. I swear I've felt that. It appeared, therefore, that a certain essence of this myth of the sun had been common to minds over the past 2,000 years. Over the decades that followed, Jung collected manuscripts from the Middle Ages, Gnostic texts, and classical works from China, India, and Tibet, Tartaria. He analyzed the many dreams and waking fantasies of his patients and traveled to Africa and India to hear dreams, myths, and legends at their source. Again and again, he discovered that similar dreams, images, and myths were surfacing in remote parts of the world and in very different cultures and historical periods. The result was a little like studying the languages of Western Europe and discovering that, with minor exceptions such as Basque, they all have a common origin in Latin. Then, unwidening the scope of the investigation, discovering that Latin itself has its root in a Proto-Indo-European tongue. Just as the German and English languages have too many points of similarity to be ascribed to pure coincidence and therefore suggest a common origin, so Pauli's dream of the world clock and the vision that occurred to a medieval monk suggest that they originated in the same ground. Through his travels and researches, Jung discovered that the images of the hero, the twin brothers, the sun, the eternal feminine, the underground journey, the serpent, the mandala of wholeness, and the dynamism of opposites occurred again and again, each time clothed in the particularities of a local culture, yet exhibiting the same underlying form. Jung's conclusion was compelling, that the unconscious mind had a collective level that is common to all humankind. Jung's dreams in 1909 had been a graphic illustration of the collective layers of the unconscious mind. While Freud's unconscious contains personal experiences and desires which have been repressed out of awareness, Jung's collective unconscious consists of material that has never before attained consciousness in the mind of the individual. The deeper levels of mind are therefore objective, for they belong to the entire human race rather than being the personal and subjective property of a particular individual. They are unconscious, not by virtue of having been forgotten or repressed, but because they exist in a hidden or enfolded form that is not normally accessible to active attention. The contents of the collective or objective unconscious are a little like a message that is sent by a spy to his intelligence agency. Since the message is in code, it cannot be directly apprehended, but must first be passed through an electronic decoding device, which converts it into normal English. In a similar way, the deepest levels of the unconscious could not, in Jung's opinion, be brought to the surface directly. It is only when certain aspects of the collective mind are projected into attention, clothed in the images and symbols of our particular culture, that we become aware of something universal that has come into the mind. And I recommend reading the rest of that book, because it is an incredible book. Synchronicity by F. David Pete. And again, the bridge between matter and mind. And it really is. Dreams are that. So it's one of those things we have to explore. We can't waste any time, waking or sleeping. We have to utilize it all to discover this truth that is so pressing and so necessary for discovery. As the medical system and science systems both crumble under the weight of their own devastating lies for generations and generations, the truth and magic of humanity and our potential is going to come back full speed. Herbs are going to come back and be essential again. The only medicine for millions of years or forever, until the pharmaceutical company about 100 years ago, and now people are convinced that herbs are useless. It's really nuts, and we have to reverse the mentality. So give it a shot. Give wild lettuce a shot. If you have any trouble sleeping, definitely do it, and don't give up if it doesn't work the first couple times or couple weeks or whatever. Stick with it. If you try a way to disguise the taste, add some mint, add some whatever you want, but it works much better than chamomile to me, I think. Chamomile makes you pee all the time. This doesn't have that effect either. It's really great. And I also remember a story from back in the day when I first got into it that was talking about the Hopi Indians, because I believe that they were the ones that were really into wild lettuce, although it comes from Chile, and it's been even said to come from Siberia area, so Tartars and South American Incas and Aztecs, so it's been around for a while, I think. But the Hopi used to say, it was told, and I read at one point, that they would drink wild lettuce ritually at night, and then they would gather at the fire the next morning, or gather around the next morning, and they would share their dreams, and that would be their way of discovering things, like, I guess, things as far as like where to hunt. I think there was one story that remained where they would discover in their mind where you'd see where animals were if there was a time of no food or low food, or if they needed something like an herb, they'd get shown a vision of where it would be in nature, and then they'd wake up and find it. This is the way reality is, and these are the connections we need to utilize in life, because we are missing half of the brilliance and magnificence of reality by neglecting our dreams and by disregarding the importance of our experience through them. And so here we go. Let's begin and talk about illusions, dreams, some more. Stay tuned for more videos to come. Bless you all. Share any dreams anytime. I love hearing them.